Good afternoon. Today I want to talk about how God is infinite and absolute. See, God is great and He is in everything from the leptons in the electrons to the quarks in protons, neutrons, and neutrinos. See, those are the very absolute materials that make up electrons, neutrons, protons, and then from that, elements are created. You see, when God was creating uh, the world, the earth, Dr. Pastor Maponga J from Zimbabwe, who has been residing in South Africa for a long period of time, tells me in his sermons that uh, God created the world from his shadows. That God could not create the world in his full glare because God is powerful, and that the waters, the oceans, the rivers that he could have created would have evaporated and no life would have remained. So, God is wonderful. God is great. God is in me. God is in you. And God gives knowledge and wisdom to people, not the entirety of wisdom. He gives it in small bits. Because if He gives a human being all the wisdom that he has, the man cannot be able to contain God's wisdom, for He is everywhere. See, there are people who are waiting for God to come from heaven and come to earth, and yet God is here. He is very present and alive, from the air that we breathe to the water that we take to the life, the stuff that I call life, that makes us significantly different from soil, from rocks, from dead wood. But significantly, if I can talk about how we are made, we are essentially made from one material, a single source. And that source is God. You see, when we talk about, it is very funny. I have been reading a lot about the universe, the expanse of the universe, the horizon that the human machines are able to cover. And I've come to realize that there is a lot there, out out of our galaxy, that we don't know. There is a lot, in fact, even within our galaxy, that we are yet to know. For example, I was reading, and you see, these are man made machines, and that wisdom has been given by God Himself so that He can reveal Himself to this generation in that way. That we have over 500 billion planets that are orbiting stars just like our sun, and have an environment that can support life. So there are people who think that we are many, we are 9 billion or we are 7 billion, and China is the leading, or India is coming up, catching up with China. You see, 1 billion people are very few. You see, our galaxy alone can support 500 billion, and that I see you are given your own planet, and we are yet to reach there. So there is a lot that is out there that we don't know and we are yet to find out. But in due course, I think in my lifetime, God will be able to reveal a lot to me, because I I came across a galaxy that is around 3 billion, the biggest, 3 billion light years away. So when we are measuring the God that I want to talk about, God is great. See, God, you cannot measure God in terms of feet. You cannot reduce God into feet or into meters, kilometers. God is the nearest thing a human being can measure God with is light years. So from there, I found out that um, I was unable to discern how large, how huge the universe is, because there are some galaxies that are bigger than ours, and there are so many black holes out there, white holes that are emitting material outwardly, and black holes that are sucking in materials, and they keep a balance, a check on the galaxies and the bodies that surround or are found contained within those galaxies. Now, uh, it made me to now come to the absolute, because infinity is something that I was unable to reach. So I wanted to know absolutely what is in the smallest material that makes a cell or an element. And I came to the electron, and I went further to know what really is in that electron, and that is where you find materials that we call leptons, vibrations. And if you talk about vibration, it beats logic. Who vibrates there? See, the most amazing thing about God and His creation is that these materials are so fascinating. And then after that, I looked at the periodic table in chemistry, and was trying to understand how the naming of those elements are done, and found out that when you add an electron in a material or in an element, it changes name. So essentially, we are made from leptons and quarks, which are vibrations that we don't know who created them, but that is God. See, that is how absolute God is. And when we talk about the universe, is the expanse, the one that we are able to see using our machines as human beings. That is that is the closest that we can talk about God. Now, I was reading John chapter 3, verse 16, a very famous verse. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And I was so fascinated by the moment I read that verse repeatedly, it brings out a different kind of information or perception in my mind, because I get to see how boundless, however sinful we are, that Jesus, the perfect atonement of sin, died for us, and how great that is to us, humanity, that we have to accept that gift that we have been gifted for free. For free. We don't work for our salvation. There's a very famous economic phrase that economists use, and they say that a person who is in the well can not be able to lift himself from the well by entering into a bucket and pulling himself from the well. So the same applies to a sinner. You cannot be able to remove yourself from sin. So that boundless life, the love that Jesus had for us, the love that the one who has undonated, unsolicited life, the one who from his love created the world and all therein, that he can forfeit the pristine stuff, this stuff that makes me talk, because there is a time that I will not be able to talk, and I will not be me. That, you see, mine is donated, mine is borrowed, mine is given for free. See, free things are the ones that we have to cherish. They are more important than those that cost money. So we have been given salvation for free, my brothers and sisters, for free. And I become happy when I read that 3:16, that my my thinking or my action is only to accept that he died for me, and I receive that. And you see, from there is some energy that you are given, the energy that you cannot have on your own. Uh, you are guarded by the angels. However bad circumstances can be, but circumstances do not define who I am, because the force that created this earth, this world, this galaxy, the universe is within me and is with me. So the circumstances that are surrounding me, surrounding people, like now we have a lot of suffering in the north and ASAL regions. You see, those are circumstances that should put our mind closer to God and discern of what we're supposed to do to assist one another, because those people are suffering. So Jesus to me is the perfect sacrifice, the once and for all sacrifice that was able to clean the mess that had been created in heaven by the devil, Lucifer, by his pride. For we are told that he was created holy, but sin was found in him, and he was casted down to earth. And the Bible refers him as the prince of this world. So most of the people, especially those who want to rule the world, Most of them seek his force, his abilities, and you find that they are the ones that are in power. I'm sorry to talk about that, but see, God is absolute. That is the goodness about that, because Jesus came, he let the one whose pride was above submission to instigate his death. You see, Jesus did not instigate his death, and they thought that he had won. But uh, when you become humble, when there is humility, when there is kindness, and all those virtues that we are taught by our good spiritual leaders, you find that you are the one who wins. Jesus won. And up to date, I know that Satan is wondering that this guy was beyond me. Because sometimes there is the reasoning of a child and another one of an octogenarian, let's say 80 years. See, they cannot reason the same, though nowadays there are some octogenarians, of course, who behave like kids, but through experience, you find that that long life that they have had uh, has made them to understand a lot. And once they give advice, they give sound advice to young people. So, as an elder, not an elder in church, but as an elder in the sense of years, because I'm aging, is that we need to listen to our inner voice and not wait for Jesus, not wait for God, because Jesus is going to come, but he's not going to touch on this ground. He's going to send the angels to collect some of us to go to heaven when his time comes. He will wait in the air for us to go up there, receive him, and go to heaven. So there is these those with the doctrines of trying to tell us that in the second advent of Jesus, that God is going to come to earth, to this world. He is not going to come here. He is going to send his son. And even his son is not going to step on the ground. He's going to wait for us in the air. And we will be translated into the body of heaven. And that body that Adam once had, the undying body, a body befitting heaven, not this body that is having a dent. These dents are not going to be accepted in the gates of heaven, because they are part of the experiences that we go through here on earth. We are not going to go to heaven without teeth. We are going to go as full human beings, a full soul that is holy in a holy body, and we are going to be received by the angels. I want to see Angel Michael. I want to see Gabriel. I want to see my namesake Enoch, the one who went with God to heaven, and the wife. I don't know where he left the wife, but he went to heaven. And once God takes something good or something from you, he replaces it with a much, much better thing. For example, when he took Enoch, he gave Methuselah. Methuselah lived for 969 years. 969. He lived up to the age that Enoch would have lived. So once God takes something away from you, he gives something much better. So let us trust in God. and know that God is great, God is everywhere, and we are not any better than a house fly or rocks or soil, for we are soil, as the Bible says, for, for unto soil we go once that time comes. So essentially, you find that there are people who want to behave as if they own this world. They have the power. They have what? Those things have been there. Nebuchadnezzar had a kingdom, a golden kingdom. And you see, that guy was a black man and a wise man who did not take counsel from himself alone, but from so many sources. And he ruled that area. But you see, with all that riches, with all that power, Nebuchadnezzar died. Nebuchadnezzar was buried. And maybe Nebuchadnezzar is part of the fossil fuel that we use in our vehicles and in our houses to light our lamps. So let us humble ourselves. Let us always remember every morning we wake up that we are closer or moving closer and closer to our graves. And in our graves, we might live there for some time, which can be a short period of time, depending on the time that He, the Prince of Light, the Son of God, will be commanded by the Father to come and take His holy brethren who have endured the suffering on this earth and have won. So it can be a few years, it can be a day, it can be 1,000 years, it can be 2,000 years. But to God, a day is like 1,000. 1,000 is like a day. For He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. That is why I conclude by saying that God is absolute, at the same time infinite. I'm not concluding yet because I have remembered something very special to me, that He converted Jesus. Okay, Jesus converted Himself into spirit, into the smallness, and entered into a womb and was born in this human body, the body of sin. That is why He had to be baptized before He started His ministry that only lasted for 3 years. That is how wonderful He was. That is how wonderful He is. And He will be, because He is the Alpha and the Omega. And that is why Satan, the devil, felt jealous, was aggrieved, became envious that he had been commissioned together with the Holy Spirit and the Father to create what we see and what we don't see. You see, sometimes people talk about life outside Earth. See, God is great. I always think that there's life out there that we don't know, because God is great. It can be even using petrol to fuel itself. not even water. That is why it cannot come here, because if it comes here, it burns. Or in a place where they use smoke to breathe, or they use other materials that we don't even know. Because God is great. He is great. Because if Jesus can give his life for faith, his life for a sinner like me, see, this is wonderful. This is why sometimes I listen to Maponga and I get a lot of information from his sermons, get information from so many people. And when we amalgamate them and discern, think, and try to apply them in our lives, they become wonderful. God is great. I conclude to say that let us be humble, let us have humility, let us love one another, let us serve one another. For the service that we give, we are serving God. Because how can you say that there is God if you cannot be able to clearly serve your brother whom you see? That is a question from Jesus. And how can you claim to be knowing the Father if I, who is here, who has his spirit, because the vibrations in me are from the Father? Thank you for listening.